with Sidney Poitier, and she was Katharine Hepburn's niece. I don't know, I didn't realize that she was actually Katharine Hepburn's niece, her daughter in the movie. And Spencer Tracy's, I guess, last role in a movie. Oh, before I do that, I was going to tell you, I usually like to talk about a book. I don't know if any of you ever read Sidney Poitier's memoir. That's one of the best memoirs I have ever read in my life. You should all read that. You talk about a man who stays above the turmoil, keeps the high road, keeps it classy. That is a great book, and I really recommend that. He's still with us. I saw him at the Oscars here not too long ago. And this is, interestingly enough, what John McCain said when he lost to Barack Obama, his concession speech. And this comment about Theodore Roosevelt and Booker Washington led a lady named Deborah Davis to write this book, A Guest of Honor, which is what most of this program is about. But she had never heard of this, I had never heard of this, until I heard John McCain talk about it in his concession speech all those years ago. So I'll let you read that. If anybody still reading? Are we all right? So, I will permit no man to narrow or degrade my soul by making me hate him. We still talk about civil rights, we still argue about civil rights, but some pretty good quotes for some pretty brave fellows, I think. Now, Alice Roosevelt lived on until 1980. Portia Washington Pittman, she lived on until 1978. They both lived in Washington, D.C., and Portia and Alice became very good friends. Portia brought her grandchildren over to visit Alice, and no doubt they had dinner together, and I doubt if anybody cared. And I thank you very much. Questions, comments? Yes, Mervyn.
One of the interesting things in Booker T. Washington's concept of education, at that time it was promoted to be equal but separate. And he lived to the point it became equal but not separate. And that's what was the change in the whole education plan. And he was condemned some by the African Americans for the fact that he specialized and he talked about being equal but separate. They wanted to be equal but not separate. So that was the change that took place during his lifetime.
Yeah, and there's whole books been written in the last couple of years, you know, about Washington and Du Bois's worldview and all this stuff. Yes, ma'am.
The Guest of Honor book you held up?
Yes, ma'am.
That's by the author?
Deborah Davis.
And what is it about?
It's about him coming to dinner with the president and their lives and the controversy.
Oh.
It's all about what I really talked about here today. I'll let you look at it before you leave if you'd like to look at it. But she tells how she had never heard of this until she saw John McCain's concession speech. And that's why she started researching it. She'd never heard that Booker Washington and Theodore Roosevelt had dinner together.
I didn't read that quote. What did he say in his speech?
Yeah, would you put that?
Yeah, I'll take
Get it
that.
later for us.
Read it out loud.
Okay. This is John McCain on the night he loses the presidential election to Barack Obama. He says, a century ago, President Theodore Roosevelt's invitation of Booker T. Washington to dine at the White House was taken as an outrage in many quarters. America today is a whole world away from the cruel and prideful bigotry of that time. There is no better evidence of that than the election of an African American to the presidency of the United States. Let there be no reason now for any American to fail to cherish their citizenship in this time, the greatest nation on earth. So, I found this picture of the two of them yucking it up with Cardinal, I forget his name.
John, he was very gracious that night, I think.
Yes, but that's what, like I said, I never heard of this. I remember him saying that, and she got the idea to write this book from hearing John McCain. So some speechwriter in John McCain's staff somehow knew about all of this, somehow.
Speech, beautiful.
Just an anecdote, talking about Theodore Roosevelt's picture. I went to Roosevelt grade school, and there was a picture of him in the principal's office, and we all thought it was our principal's husband.
Virginia, why were you in the principal's office? But if you ever watch Blue Bloods with Tom Selleck, in his office, he has this big picture of Theodore Roosevelt up on the wall. I'm reading a new book right now, Doris Kearns Goodwin's new book about William Howard Taft and Theodore Roosevelt, about using the bully pulpit of the president and the press, and one of Doris Kearns Goodwin's books. So it's it's about this big. It'll take me probably the rest of my life to get through it, but. Anyway, we just thought this would be something interesting for Black History Month, something you might not have ever heard of. And anybody else has questions? What are you doing next, Debbie Hall?
If you haven't, of course, Booker T. Washington National Monument is just right up the road and off 122. And they have a number of great programs there throughout the year. Check out their website. They do a lot of really cool stuff at Christmas especially, and tours and things. So, and we've had some folks down from there down here to speak. So if you haven't had the opportunity to pay a visit, or even if you have, it's a pretty drive up there. And weather like today, it's a great place to go visit. And I do thank everybody for coming today, especially on a pretty afternoon. I think we're supposed to get some rain later today and chilly weather tomorrow, but then it's supposed to turn out nice. We'll be open if you have not had a chance to check out our On the Shoulders of Giants exhibit downstairs. Please do. It'll be up a little while longer, but we got some great items in that exhibit, so I would encourage you to look and see. And if you did not sign our guest book when you came in, if you would do that before you leave, we would appreciate it. And that's about all I have. But Virginia, you wanted to...
Well,